Finding the right valuation company for your reverse mortgage appraisals is key. Now, one of the most trusted teams in reverse appraisals is back with a new name, Atlas Valuation. To learn more, visit atlasvms.com or call or click on the banner below this video. Partner with Atlas today.
Happy Friday, everyone. We have back with us Dr. Stephen Cambell with Center. He's an executive coach, and today we're going to be talking about the power of empowerment. And so, Stephen, what in the world is the power of empowerment? It's like a double-double.
So great, yeah. So when we think about the idea of empowerment in leadership, one of the phrases that you'll hear often is, we need to figure out how to get everybody a seat at the table. You've probably heard that phrase. It gets used often in the idea of how do we create equity and inclusion in what we're doing. And I actually think that's a little bit of a misnomer, because it comes from a perspective that says there are certain people who are at the table who have the power, and their job is to figure out how to open up seats for people to come to the table who don't have the power yet. And I believe that a more appropriate concept of empowerment is, I need to believe and recognize that everybody actually already has the power that they need and deserves a seat at the table from the beginning. So it's the idea that says you have all the power that you need to be you, to be your authentic self, to function in the way that you're going to function. My job is to be able to say, how can I help recognize the power that you have? And how can I help create an environment in which you can use the power that you have? So I'm not giving you power, right? Because that implies that I have more power than you do.
Or you have it to give in the first place.
Right. Or that somehow I'm the holder of the power, right? Now, there are some structures where I think there are key ingredients and people that maybe are holding power, and that's where power needs to actually be dismantled. But that's not actually what we're talking about here, right? That's a whole different conversation.
Ball of
right?
wax, yes.
Exactly. But here, what we're doing is, if we're going to be somebody who says, I actually think you have the power that you already need, and what my role is to try and help give you space and room for that empowerment and that power to be utilized well.
Does that take a good eye for talent, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, there's a part of that that's true. I think what it actually takes is a really good eye for seeing the uniqueness in people. So my ability to discover what are the unique features that you bring to this table, that you the uniqueness of your perspective, of your voice. I know this world is, we've, in our last conversation when we were talking about witness, we were thinking about things like there's an underwriter and there's a processor and all these different things. Well, those individuals bring a unique perspective to the overall mission of what we're trying to do. And sometimes, if I'm willing to listen to their perspective, they might help me. Let's say I'm a lender. They might help me see things that I didn't see before. But that's only if I'm helping them to say, I want you to use the power and your voice in a way that is overall toward the wholeness of who we're trying to be as an organization. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So what are some practical ways that happens if you get an organization to embrace this kind of concept of empowerment?
Yeah. So part of it is a willingness to begin to get really honest about what are the unique strengths and abilities that everybody brings. And there's a recognition from the very beginning that says we don't all have to have the same strengths. So I've worked with organizations before where there are some folks who are, we'll use some general characteristics. Maybe they're way more introverted, right? And maybe they're way better at sort of back end kind of things. And they love that kind of stuff.
Just diving deep, right?
Exactly, right? I have this one friend, I tease him, I call him, you're my friend that thinks in spreadsheets, right? Like he just literally, I don't even know how he does it, but he literally thinks in spreadsheets.
He loves pivot tables.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing, right? And which that is not how my brain works, right? And it's like, oh, yeah, go. And so in that situation, when I'm working with him, a part of what I am trying to figure out is how do I let you run with that really amazing, unique skill that you have? And I don't need to try and become that, right? Like I'm not going to try and learn how to do all that stuff because I have unique skills that I bring in probably another arena.
Right.
And so it starts by saying, what are the unique strengths and abilities that each individual brings to the table, and how can we let those come to the forefront and let those voices really be heard well?
So, let me try this one on
Great.
for size.
Great.
So you got loan officers, right? Originators,
Sure.
Men and women who are out there educating people, but they all have one common skill set. At least you hope they do. They're salespeople, right?
Exactly.
So they've somewhat mastered the art of communication,
Right.
with the end goal of placing the product if it's appropriate.
Absolutely.
But within that group of salespeople, so they possess the same skill set, some of them may have a talent or an ability that's maybe, let's say, public speaking, whereas the other ones are really great at the kitchen table, just like you and I sitting here at a table one-on-one. They're great, but they would just be awful in front of a large audience.
Right, yeah.
Is that a fair example?
Absolutely,
Okay.
right. So if, let's say you have two of those team members who are a part of the same team, and you're presented with an opportunity. I was at a Rotary meeting yesterday, and they had somebody who came and they did a presentation, or maybe like the presentation where you and I first started talking about sharing this space together.
Right.
Well, it was at a chamber event, and I was presenting at a luncheon. Well, let's say there's two originators who are on the same team, and let's say Rotary says, hey, we'd like for your organization to have to come and do a presentation to us on reverse mortgage. Great. Well, we're going to pick the one who has the more natural ability, and the empowerment process says it's a beautiful thing to let you step forward in that more public space. Okay, but now here's this other opportunity, and what we're going to do is we're going to have a meeting with a group of 5 folks that are a part of a homeowners association board or something.
Yeah.
And that's more of a table conversation, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to naturally give the Rotary presentation to this person, and we're going to give the homeowners table conversation to this person. That's because we're trying to empower them in the strengths that they have. And it doesn't mean that one is better than the other either way. It just means that what we're going to do is we're really going to let them play to their own strengths. And that's kind of the way, in your example there, that practical empowerment can happen.
Right. So in an organization, have you ever found leaders that are just like, I don't know how to do this? I mean, how do I know what to empower? Or do you find that most of them are pretty aware of their individual employees' abilities?
Yes and no. I've seen both sides of that coin, actually. I've seen some leaders that they personally have more of a natural ability to read people.
Right.
And in those circumstances, it's pretty easy for them to kind of go, oh, I see their strengths, I see their strengths. I've also seen leaders who that's not a part of their natural ability. And in that circumstance, then here's what I encourage them is find somebody who can help you figure that out. Or just go to your individual team members and begin to say, hey, help me know you better. What are the things that you love to do? This is one of the questions that I find is really helpful in this process, especially as I'm coaching somebody who maybe doesn't have that natural ability to read people.
Right.
A great question to ask somebody is, when you come to work, what is the favorite thing that you do when you're here at this job?
And that'll often lead you to
their natural strengths and abilities.
So empowerment in that example is to do what? To say, hey, here's an opportunity. I'd love to see you step into it.
Exactly. Right? Because a part of authentic leadership in this empowerment process, I have a couple of different leaders that I'm coaching right now, and we talk regularly about the idea that really great authentic leadership in this empowerment space is you're constantly creating an invitation for people to step into a new space or into a more of an authentic self of who they are even. So your job as a leader is to create invitation to say, here's an opportunity. and it's in your wheelhouse, and how are you willing to step into it?
Right.
Which can be challenging, right? Because there is this sense of control factor.
For the leader or the...
Right, because
okay.
if I'm creating invitation for people to use their power,
Sure.
they still get to be in charge of whether they want to accept the invitation or not.
Okay, so you lose a little power there to their own free will.
Exactly.
Do I jump in or I say, nah, not so much?
Right. So I have to be willing to, in this empowerment process, know that I also need to let them have their own agency. And they get to decide whether they're going to accept this invitation or not. Now, if I'm the leader of, say, the organization, I also get to decide whether or not, well, this is what I expect of this role. Mm-hmm. Well, then maybe you're not the right fit for this role.
More of a job description kind of issue.
And that's
right?
also a part of this process too, right?
Yeah.
Is being clear. I talk with leaders a lot about clear is kind. Brene Brown uses that language,
I like that.
right?
Clear
is kind, right? When I can be clear, that's actually a kindness that I'm giving to you.
I find that in marriage too.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah.
I tell my wife to speak to me like I'm a golden retriever,
There
real
you go.
slow and simple, and I'll understand you.
Perfect.
So clear
Yeah.
is kind.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
And that's one of the key elements in, I think, a really good empowerment process is our ability just to be really clear about this is yours, this is mine, and then this is ours, right?
Right.
And how are we going to tackle that together?
Absolutely. So can you give us a testimony of maybe someone who was empowered by someone you worked with?
Yep.
Because you do executive coaching,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm. And so you met with this leader, and
Yeah.
he or she was able to empower an employee. What are some of the tangible results you've seen?
Yeah. So I have a person that I'm working with. They have somebody that they identified. I think they might have an ability to step up into a supervisory role. They've been really good at the role that they're in. The other people who are around them that are doing that role naturally are coming to them when they have questions about how to do that role.
So leadership recognized.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And so they said, I think that this person might have an opportunity if I were to, because an opening came for them to lead those people that were doing that. So to elevate to, instead of doing that role, to supervising the people who were doing that role.
Got it.
But that's a big shift.
Yeah.
There's a really big difference between doing something and then leading others who are doing that thing, or supervising others who are doing that thing. So I talked with their supervisor about what it looked like for them to extend the invitation to them to say, I really think you might have this ability. Mm-hmm. I really think it might be time for you to take this step. How do you feel about this? So they went, did that, extended that invitation to empowerment. They stepped into that new supervisory role and they thrived in it. Now, part of what happened in that process is they asked me if I'd come in alongside of the supervisor and I'd help work with them on the move from doing to supervising, because that's a pretty intense move that not everybody can make.
What are some of the key things that you need to look for when you're moving from doing to supervising?
Right. You have to recognize that it's less about the task and it's now more about the people.
Interesting.
Right. So you have to shift your mentality from getting the task done to thinking about the people who are getting the task done. So that's the key ingredient there that I've seen is the most effective when you're going from task to supervising people who are doing task.
Interesting.
Anyway, so they asked me to come in, help work with them as well. I came alongside of them, and then they just really began to thrive. And as they began to make that shift themselves of, oh, I see, this isn't about me making sure that all the boxes are getting checked. This is about me supporting my team. Maybe if you go back to our previous episode on witness. So I actually was working with that supervisor about cultivating a culture of witness with this team and saying, how can you support them instead of getting all the tasks done? How do you support them and them getting the tasks done? And so it was a win-win for the organization on multiple layers because we identified and elevated a new leader. They made a move onto some of their skills, and it actually made the people that they were supervising even stronger in their role in the process.
Excellent. So you were kind of like the the guide or the Sherpa to get them
Right.
from task oriented to supervisory
Exactly.
oriented.
Yeah,
Excellent.
exactly.
So I didn't even know you did that.
Yeah.
So you're not just talking to the executive leaders. You may come in and speak to one of their staff.
Absolutely.
That they're perhaps empowering is the word
Right.
Today that we're speaking about.
Exactly.
So that is interesting. So it's not so much about when you shift from a task-driven role and you're in a department to a supervisor, it's not about the task, it's about the people.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And that's actually also another part of that empowerment process, because what I needed to do in that circumstance was I was still working with the primary supervisor to help them know how they could continue to empower this leader. So that was sort of a tandem approach that we were taking there. And then it was all about this person then beginning to recognize, how do I also help empower those who are under me now too? How can I see their strengths for who they are and the uniqueness of who they individually are in the process as well?
Excellent.
Yeah, it was good.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, you bet.
I feel empowered, right?
Great.
But if I'm honest, even in my career, it's taken other people at times in my life that saw something in me that
Absolutely.
I didn't. Is that a big part of empowerment?
It's a big part of it.
Yeah, teachers, colleagues.
You bet. One of the things that one of the very specifics, I'm glad you said that, because one of the specifics that I talk with leaders about, especially in this realm of empowerment, is the greatest tool you have is your ability to name something that you see in somebody else that they might not yet see in themselves. So to go back to this specific example, one of the things that I was coaching the leader on was their ability to name in this person, I think you have the capacity to be a supervisor. And so they went and said that to that person, and they were like, "What?" Like that was new territory for them.
Right, they hadn't even crossed their mind.
Exactly, but it was a part of of empowering them and being able to name that in them and saying, I really see this capacity in you.
Yeah.
And that, boy, it unlocked it for them.
Yeah.
It really unlocked it for them.
And that's got to be rewarding as a leader, right?
For sure.
Seeing people get closer to their potential.
Exactly.
I don't think we ever achieve it, but at least you're moving forward, right?
Right. And we're all still growing, right? It's a journey. It's a process for all of us. But when we can take those steps along the way, discover new things about who we are, and be empowered to live into those potentials and those opportunities, really great stuff happens.
That's definitely a gift in an organization.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, folks. That wraps up another episode with Dr. Stephen Cambell. Again, we're going to leave his information on the screen so you can contact him and learn a little bit more about Center and how they may be able to help and benefit your organization and the individuals within it, empower them. So we want to make that known to you. Also, be sure to share this video with other professionals. I know LinkedIn's a great place for professionals to hang out, and this is about professionals today. So
Thanks.
We want to make sure that they benefit as well. So thank you in advance for sharing. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you here next Friday for more Food for Thought.
Finding the right valuation company for your reverse mortgage appraisals is key. Now, one of the most trusted teams in reverse appraisals is back with a new name, Atlas Valuation. To learn more, visit atlasvms.com or call or click on the banner below this video. Partner with Atlas today.